Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Illusionist, and welcome back to another game of Blood Bowl. This week, we are playing once more against a Wood Elf team, the Leapers of Loren. The Ironbeards are back in action, and it's going to be quite an even match by the looks of things. 1360 value versus 1320, both same number of the rerolls. The difference is probably going to be in the players. I still have my Death Roller. The Elves don't actually have access to a big guy, I don't think. No, I tell a lie, they have the Tree Man. Likely this team won't have one yet. Wood Elves tend not to, while there's still War Dancers to buy. So this is going to be an interesting match between Dwarven Brute Force and Wood Elven Agility. We'll see which one pays off. Quickly see the lineup down the side. Yes, 2 War Dancers. Looks like a whole bunch of linemen and a thrower on the far end. So this is going to be quite an agile team, trying to duck and dodge and dive away from the Dwarves. Let's see how they go. Off with the camera, put on the grid and the names. Wood Elves get the toss, and they choose to kick. That's quite unusual, not sure why. Generally speaking, most teams prefer to receive, if only to keep the ball away from their opponents. Giving me the ball, yes, it makes me have to travel longer up the pitch, but I'm a lot tougher than he is, so getting it away from me is going to be the challenge. I don't know. Anyway, the Wood Elves are setting up. And you can see they don't want to get too close. They've put 3 players on the side of the pitch. What this usually does is they have to have a minimum of 3, but if they would put them, say, right in the middle here, I can have 2 players on either end and loop around the side. Because I can only have 2 players in the outfield, one here and one here, for example, I can only get 1 player around the side. So generally speaking, he's a little bit safer doing it that way than lining up straight in the middle or one at a time and just getting beaten down the traditional way. It's not going to make too much of a difference, I don't think, given that I've got my Death Roller. I can just put him right on the side as he rolls across the side, takes out the first guy, grants an assist, takes out that guy, grants an assist. I want to get all 3 of his guys down anyway, with a little bit of luck. Elf with the dodge skill, Elf with the dodge skill. There's his kicker. A skill I need to invest in, I think. When you kick off at the start of a turn, I seem to do a lot of really big scatters, which means I'm often putting the ball off the pitch, or into my half of the pitch, and that gives my opponent a significant advantage. It's usually a good skill just to have on a blocker somewhere. I mean, if I get a guy who's already got guard and stand firm or something like that, kick is probably the next best skill. Or I might just want to take one guy and give him kick, just for the sake of it. Where's that guy gone? The guy with no skill, there he is. So if Hargin gets a level up after this match, I might give him kick, because it'll be his only skill. I can put him on at the start of the kick, and then take him off when I'm receiving, and put all my guard and stand firm guys back on the pitch. We'll see how we go. A long way to go before we do that. Before we do that, I've got to try and break this losing streak. As you can see, the Dwarves are still in the brown of shame. Only the first team of winners gets to play in black. I actually quite like playing in brown, I have to be honest with you, because it looks like they've got a bronze copper coloured armour, which is a nice look. I like it. Not so great on things like the Trolls, though, who just have their brown trousers on. Cue Blackadder joke if you happen to know it. Anyway, as we're receiving, runner goes to the back of the field, sure hands ready and waiting to catch. I line up my 3 guys ready to knock down his linemen. My guys all have guard, apart from the one who has dodge. So that's basically a strength 5 wall right there. I'm not too worried about taking these guys. And the Death Roller is lined up ready to blitz. Whoever needs blitzing, quite frankly, probably the lineman. Put a tackle zone on his thrower ready for next turn, because that's quite an expensive player and quite an important one. No, where's his thrower? There he is. So knock this guy out. Come over here. But we'll see. I might take the opportunity to blitz one of the linemen. I'm really interested in getting this line down. That gives me free rein to move up and down the pitch as I need to. Quick snap. Doesn't really help, I don't think. I can move one square. Great. I'm more or less where I want to be anyway. It's just a nudge towards the ball. Shouldn't be ungrateful, of course, because my stumpy little dwarf legs need to be as close to the ball as possible. I think it's landing around here somewhere. And also it gets my blitzer and my troll slayers closer to the fight. Because these guys are only movement 5, and that's pretty poor. Death roll is only movement 4, which is even worse. So that's good to know. Everyone shuffles forward. Normal dwarf tactics. Oh, he caught it. Wow, okay, that doesn't happen very often. Good to know. Anyway, normal dwarven tactics, knock down the front line, and then you've got a cage in the middle of the pitch, and slowly walk your way up the pitch. I don't foresee too many problems with that. I mean, we've got the War Dancer here, movement 9, and another one here with strip ball, so I'll try and stay away from this guy. Don't want to get tackled by him in any way, shape or form. But at the same time, all my guys are pretty tough, they've all got decent armour, they've all got the block skill. If I play patiently, as we learned we should have done in the last match with the professional elf team, the pro elves, we should have a nice straightforward move up and down the pitch. Okay, first step, taking down the front line. That's 2. Can I make it 3 for 3? Yes we can. Defender stumbles and defender down. Dodge won't help you there. Dwarves have tackle. Notice I'm moving the guys to the right, which means I can swing my dwarves over to the left. And so if you look at it straight down the middle of the pitch, most of the elves are to the right. I can move up to the left. I've got a bit more freedom to move around in. It's not going to do me a lot of good, given I'm only movement 4 and 5. It's movement 7, 8 and 9 elves. But it's nice just to have it on the off chance something comes up. Oh, that's what we want. First roll the dice for the death roller. He gets a serious injury. The guy gets no long-term damage, but that's an elf off the pitch. That's absolutely brilliant. And of course it puts another tackle zone on his lineman, so he's not getting away too easily. Doesn't even have the dodge skill. Which is unfortunate, but it happens. Put my blocker in the middle of this little mob. I'm not going to put him up against the front line. There is the chance that these guys will get up and blitz, push the guy, say one of these guys back, and if he's here, then he's in a tackle zone straight away. Again, not a big problem, because I've got so many guys around I can sort of punch them out of the way, but it limits my options. I don't want to be doing that. Do you remember when we played against the necromantic team? I had a very, very tight cage of 3x3, and I kept getting pushed out a bit. Someone would push in from the side, and the ball carrier in the middle would get moved to the edge. So, if you can, I now like to try and keep a gap. I've got plenty of tackle zones around, plenty of guard holding blockers. It's still not easy to get through, but if people do push around, there's still this little air gap between my ball carrier and the guys who are coming in. That does, however, cause a bit of a problem against wood elves, because their war dancers have the leap skill, and there's nothing stopping him vaulting from this square to this one and getting some dice on my blocker. It's not going to do him a great deal of good, because it's definitely going to be a 2 dice at least in my favour, but with strip ball all he needs is a push. So, you know, it's a 5 in 6 chance he's going to get the ball off me, even if he doesn't knock me over. Instead, he's backing up, trying to recollect himself. Now that I've got myself established in a square, he's trying to get a line going across the middle. So my big unwieldy block has to manoeuvre one way or the other. And the further I have to go, the harder it is. Obligatory 1 square gap, so I can't get any blocks. That limits me to only causing 1 injury a turn with my 1 blitz. Which is likely to be the Death Roller, so we like playing with him, he's fun. But also that gives me a whole line of free movement. I mean, the last thing I want to do is try and dodge somewhere. By giving me this breathing space, I'm pretty much moving freely, to be honest with you. That's not been the greatest idea. Yes, he doesn't want to give away too many injuries, but at the same time, he needs to stop me just walking away. Because that's his greatest benefit at this point, is how fast he can move and how far he can run. He can outpace me, but at the same time, I can still go wherever I want to. It's starting to ramble a bit. You see what I mean? He kind of wants to slow me down. So I can move at full speed. It's not impressive, but it will get me a touchdown in 2 or 3 turns. Instead, I'm putting tackle zones on all his nearby characters. The Death Roller gets involved. I try and pick an opportune target. Really, I want to take the War Dancers off the pitch, because that's the biggest threat at this point. Push and push. That wasn't great. Having said that, this guy now has nowhere to go. He can only dodge away from my cage, my ball carrier. If I'd have, say, attacked the guy at the top, he'd be able to come through the middle if he wanted to. It's not ideal. Kind of hope for more from a strength 7 mighty blow character, but hey, that's the way the dice go. It's got to be my blitzer as well. That's never a good idea. He should have been up here, stopping people moving through the middle. There have been a couple of comments from my last video. Thank you everyone who asked me questions and wanted to know about more of what we're doing. One of the questions that was asked was, why do I refer to an elf team as a pro elf team or a professional elf team? Which I've been doing ever since I played Euphonic Cadence in the last match. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. On the one hand, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I just like to differentiate between Wood Elves, Dark Elves, High Elves, and Elves. Because Elf tends to get used as a catch-all term for any sort of pointy-eared Agility 4 team. And by giving them another name, you know who I'm talking about. The reason I chose the name Professional Elves is because of an old Blood Bowl sourcebook called Death Zone. I first started playing the game in 1998, when Games Workshop reprinted the game and brought out the 3rd edition rules, and they brought out a supplement which introduced a lot of teams, including the Pro Elves, or as they were just simply called, Elves. However, in the fluff section of the book that tells you more about them, what they do, it describes them as elves who, they sort of give up on factions. They don't want to be Wood Elves or High Elves. They just want to play Blood Bowl. They want to be Blood Bowl players. And as such, they are very professional. Hence, Professional Elves or Pro Elves. A little bit of history for you there, but that's why I do that. In the meantime, the Wood Elves are getting back in action. Again, the 1 square gap between me and them, and 3 layers of players between me and the end zone. So if I have to go through there, I have to take out the War Dancer, then I can get blocked by the 2nd line. If I survive that, I get blocked by the 3rd line. So in 3 turns, I can only move 3 squares. Pretty common, we've seen that before. However, that works quite well for me, because now there's only 1 player on this side. Just got lineman in the middle, Nailheim, I think that's his name. I push him to one side, I can move... Again, I can move diagonally nearly as far as I want to. No doubt this guy's going to dodge out of the way next. Since that lineman stops moving. And I doubt... Oh, okay, so no, I was wrong. So he's got those two there, so slowing me down. Okay, that's the sort of move he needs to be making. That's my avenue of escape. And he's put two bodies in, not just the one. And he's getting a catcher ready down here, so if he does get the ball away from me, he's got a receiver ready and waiting later on. Fortunately, because I left my blitzer down there, I can at least dog him and slow him down a bit. Or, if nothing else, he's agility 3, potential interceptor in the way. Not likely, but plausible. Got behind the War Dancer too. He's eyeing up my blocker. I've left gaps at the front this time. Ideally shouldn't have, but no one can move fast enough to stop him. Death Roller. Again, like I said, making blitzers with the Death Roller. Big and clever. He's strength 7, so he always gets lots of dice. That knockout was an added bonus. But he gets the benefit of his skills too. He doesn't have the block skill, but he does have Juggernaut, which when you're blitzing amounts to the same thing. And it's given me a good opportunity, because now, as I said, I can move my cage to the right. It's not really a feint. I can't move fast enough to move over here, get him to follow me, and then shoot around. But I've spread his team across the top. They're only a couple of layers deep. I've taken a couple of players off the pitch. And now what I want to do is move towards the edge of the pitch. Not right up to the edge, because I'm going to get pushed off and pushed out of bounds doing that. But I now outnumber him significantly. I'm now better in a fight than him, always have been. If I get my back to the wall, say about a square here, he's unlikely to dodge down this avenue, because he'll be going to 3 or even 4 tackle zones to do it. Which means I've got this whole side safe. I can put a minimum number of players there, protect myself on this side, my ball carrier nice and snug in the middle. All he can do is line up in front of me as I slowly grind my way forward. I mean, really, there's nothing to stop me, really, from going across to the left, and doing the same thing. Except that I'm still slightly bit close to the right. And also, that's where his War Dancer is waiting for me. I wouldn't say I'm scared of that guy, but he's the biggest threat on the pitch at this point. And I want to try and stay away, and force him to blitz. If only because if he's blitzing, no one else is either. For example, his other War Dancer. I mean, this guy always strip ball and this guy's extra movement. Clearly what he'd want to do is to come in here, knock the ball to the side, have the War Dancer pick it up and keep running. The second War Dancer to do that. Or a lineman, of course, it doesn't really matter which, but he'd be the best choice between having the dodge and block skill to keep him upright. That lineman's looking a bit nervous between the blocker and the death roller. I mean, what I'd probably do here is use the blocker to block, for obvious reasons. He's got the tackle skill. And then the death roller to blitz ahead. So that's potentially 2 injuries. I wouldn't really blitz this guy at point blank range if I can get a second one into the bargain too. But here we go again. He spreads out. Again, not too concerned with being surrounded on the grounds that by the time I've got across to this edge of the pitch, I will outnumber him and also have them nice and tight for protection. And I know he doesn't want to get close, not without the opportunity to make his move where he actually attacks me. So every time he's got a guy in base contact, that's one extra attack that I can make, potentially injuring him, and that's not what he wants. Okay, lineman's down here, waiting to catch the ball when it comes his way. Yep, lineman dodges away, was expecting that. But again, every time he does that, another chance for him to fail a dice roll and turn over. Here comes the War Dancer. So yeah, he leaps the Death Roller to land here, attacks the blocker. It's 2 dice going in my favour, I get to pick, because it's so many players. But he gets the one result that doesn't get the ball off me. If you're not sure how strip ball works, ooh, okay, that was unfortunate. Failed his dodge and got KO'd for it. Okay, that worked out extremely well for me. A strip ball, your opponent always drops the ball if they are moved. So if they're knocked down or pushed, or even just pushed, they will drop the ball. Unfortunately, he got both down, which doesn't move my player, so he doesn't drop the ball. And in trying to dodge out, his strip ball character KOs himself. So I could not have asked for a better turn than that, quite frankly. I've taken his biggest threatening piece off the board. He's taken his own piece off the board. I've still got a nice tight cage. I've still got my Death Roller having fun. What do I get? What do I get? Juggernaut. Again, the benefits of a blitz. Unfortunately, I don't have Frenzy on the Death Roller. Juggernaut and Frenzy is hilarious, so I need to start working on that, I think. It will take a double roll, I think, to get that skill, and I might be better off with block in the long run, but that's something to work towards. If nothing else, I pushed the lineman further up, so now my guys can move their whole, 3 out of 4 squares. Nice tight cage. Again, I can ignore this side because realistically no one's going to dodge into that many tackle zones. Death Roll at the front, blocker with his tackle skill next to him. All the elves out in the wilderness over here. His catcher's going to get marked up by my blitzer. And it's just nice, steady progress up the board. Now I can afford to start tightening up the cage a little bit. Doing that because, his War Dancer's here. He can leave. He could have leapt if he wanted, but this guy doesn't have the strip ball skill, so he can get in. The odds of him taking the ball off my blocker are remote. It's, I don't even want to work it out. It's 1 in 3, but I get to choose which dice. So I don't know. It's probably something like it's probably 1 in 36. Probably that's what most dice results come up as usually. Don't really care, but at any rate, don't want to let him do it. So we tighten it. Again, he goes for the multiple layers, so not only can I not push his entire line of players out of the way and get a free run, but that means if I move forward, he's got an assist next turn. That seems to be the plan. If I knock over this lineman, for example, I move my guy into base with his thrower. That's automatically an assist, so someone can blitz next turn, take down my player. I've lost a corner from my cage. That's the next best way to take down a cage, apart from just throwing something like a big guy at it. Set up a tempting block, or a tempting blitz, that moves into a position with a supporting character, so that next turn, make your attacks with support, instead of just running one guy in a kamikaze blitz, like the War Dancer tried to. He hasn't really got me penned in. Ooh, that was unfortunate. It failed another dodge roll. Yikes. It's not going well for the Wood Elf player. So saying, he's not really got me cornered. My Troll Slayers are here, so they can push these guys out the way, or even just move around and up if they need to. Blocker attacks a lineman and gets an injury thanks to his tackle skill. Good lad, Jartrek. That lets my Death Roller blitz. Both down, pushed and stumbles. Again, I could Juggernaut that. He's not got the dodge skill though. So I knock him down. Fortunately I don't get the injury. Death Roller is... Oh, he levels up. Excellent. He must have got that from that last injury. Great stuff. So it's only 2 squares. By moving carefully up the pitch, I've got superior numbers, I've got superior toughness. Could I be moving faster? Apparently I had some spectators during this match. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, whoever you were. Who seemed to think that I could actually have been moving a little bit faster up the pitch. Well, let's look at that, shall we? Could I now? Not really. I only had the 1 block and the 1 blitz available, so I've only moved the 2 guys out of the way. Could I have run my blocker up through there? No, too many tackle zones. Could I have passed the ball sideways? Not really, not with the War Dancer and the catchers stood here. Troll Slayers are only agility 2, so they're not going to be doing any catching. And also, I'm keeping an eye on the clock on the top right. It's only turn 5. Could I have moved forward faster? We're talking probably 1 square a turn. As I was just saying, if I end a turn in base contact, as I have done here, that leaves players with assists for the next blitz. So the War Dancer comes around here and attacks this blocker. That's this guy here providing an assist. He's not doing that, but let's just say he did. Knocks this guy out of the way, puts a tackle zone on my blocker, makes my life that little bit more difficult. Potentially, next turn, if he's still there, he's got block and dodge, he might just do that. He can knock the blocker over. So while I was saying that my opponent doesn't want me in base contact, I don't particularly want to be in base contact with him too much either. Because, as I said, that's how a cage gets broken. You leave him with lots of assists right up close, and it takes 1 lucky blitz. This close to the edge of the touchdown, I might want to risk it. So I've only got 3 turns now to get through 2 layers of players. So that's going to take me 2 turns to do that. But by and large, could have handed the ball off to my runner, perhaps, because he's certainly a bit more mobile than the blocker. And he's agility 3, so that would be a bit easier to do than, say, the Troll Slayer. But no. We'd be talking maybe 1 or even possibly 2 squares a turn, I think. At the same time, we go back and remember the Euphonic Cadence match against the Professional Elves. I gave them the ball with a touchdown in their turn 7. They immediately ran straight down the pitch and scored in 2 turns, because I couldn't stop them just leaping over my wall, throwing a pass. And with their War Dancers on the pitch, they've got the leap skill. Getting over my wall is even easier for these guys. No, I don't want to score too quickly. Moving up the pitch faster would have been, I think, significantly more risky than taking the slow and careful approach. Don't be wrong, I would have liked to. If I could get up the pitch and maybe score a second time, that would have been hilarious. But unlikely. I've had a lot of luck so far. The War Dancer taking himself up the pitch, my blocker collecting the ball in the first place. Reasonably, I wouldn't want to push my luck much further. Now what I'm doing, I'm making another feint to the left, because that's the clear avenue to the touchdown. I am within striking range now, so next turn we can potentially score, as I've just said. But also, secondly, I want to get my runner away from the edge of the pitch, quite frankly. This is my 3rd runner of the season. I've only just got him the block skill. If you add up all my runners so far, I would probably have the single most experienced player in the league, had they not been dying. So, I want to preserve this one if I can. Bit cowardly of me, but then you realise I've got a whole other half to try and get through. let that be a lesson to you folks. Break tackle effectively gave me agility 7 then. I still failed the dodge roll, trying to put a tackle zone on these 3 players. And because he's a loner, he ate a reroll as well. Boo. So that's what I'm saying about taking risks. If that had worked, I'd have pinned all these 3 players and had forced them to try and dodge basically that way, away from my ball carrier. Now I've done that wrong, I've got a potential assist on this blocker. So if he puts a guy here, he gets a nice safe block on this one. He can potentially blitz into my blocker with someone else afterwards. It was worthwhile, I don't regret doing it. Probably shouldn't have bothered with the reroll. It's only 50-50, but that's the only true statistic in this game. Wood Elf player spreads out his line. No doubt he's going to move away from the death roller. I wouldn't blame him. That would be the sensible thing to do. As soon as he wakes up next turn, he's going to be angry. And he's only movement 4, so if he gets up, that takes up 3 of his movement squares. The best he can do is move 1 to blitz. And then he has to go for it to make the actual blitz roll, so he could potentially take himself out for 2 turns in a row. His armour value 10 though, so he's not likely to be taken off the pitch before the end of the half. Yep, there he goes. He has that though left an open channel for my runner. So if I move this blocker out of the way, move to here, 1, 2, 3, 4, hand off to the runner, I've still got a reroll, the runner just walks straight in. This guy makes a run away from my blitzer, I don't say that I blame him. So I've got 2 opportunities here. I can either blitz the lineman out of the way and move my whole cage up here, or I can try a risky handoff to my runner and have him just walk in. Again, it'll still only be turn 7 when I give the Wood Elves the ball. So I don't think I'll do that. I don't want to be on the defence any more than I strictly have to. So this is going to take the death roller. Getting up. We can take out the lineman, that will be hilarious. Defender down, good start. No, just... oh, he's KO'd. Oh, that was brilliant. That's exactly what we wanted. So we reform the cage again. Try and count up how far this blocking is. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He can end up here if he wants to. Takes a bit of finagling to do that. It's a technical term, by the way. Then we have a nice solid wall of players here, keeping the Wood Elves out the way. Made a mess of that there, put this blocker in the way. So now I can only end up here. For the purposes of actually making a move, not a big problem, but not ideal. Put a tackle zone on the lineman, so he's not easily going to move up and around. Start lining my guys up, ready for next turn. So it's a bit of a risk. It's turn 8, or it will be next turn. I make that go for it there so I don't end up on the edge. I mean, potentially a guy could end up here and then blitz him and get lucky. Don't want that. But I squash all my guys into his team, so really he's looking at a lot of dodges because he's not going to get around this way, not realistically. That's a long way to travel even for his movement 9 war dancer, who has to make dodge rolls, and so does the lineman. They have to get past my runner and the death roller. I mean, he's got really 2 options, and either he puts a line of wood elves here in blocking positions with my runner and the blocker, so that I can't just walk straight through, or he lines up in the end zone, basically, which he's going to do. So now I have to blitz with the blocker, or blitz with someone to push the guy out of the way, and he has to go down or off the pitch. There's no two ways about it. So he ends up, say, here, still upright. I still have to move through a tackle zone. I'm not doing that. I think he's made a mistake, though. He's left this gap in the corner, which means I have more options available to me. On the one hand, I can blitz with the blocker, push the catcher off the pitch, and that gives me all this space to move my ball carrier into. Alternatively, I can move my blocker to here, my runner to here, and blitz with my ball carrier and get the assist off this blocker. Anything other than both down, in that case, will get me a touchdown, or of course an attacker down. Whereas if I blitz with this guy and push this guy off the pitch, it's just a straight walk. Again, anything other than attacker down. I would probably have put the wood elves here and risk the blocks, quite frankly, because that way, if anyone stays upright or is just pushed, they end up in the tackle zone, in the end zone rather, which means my blocker has to make a dodge roll, and that's not going to happen. I think in this case he's been a little bit too shy. There are times when you have to put your player's health on the line. Don't particularly want to do it, but the alternative is making the touchdown that little bit easier. From my point of view, this looks like a fairly easy touchdown. Hell, I could blitz the catcher with my death roller. Chances are he's going off the pitch, and then my blocker just walks in the touchdown. I'm going to go for the glory approach though. Put my blocker into an assist, put my runner into a cancelling position. Death roller goes here for another walk down to the line. Just in case this does go wrong, I don't want to give the ball away. I mean, it doesn't really matter now, because even the wood elves can't get 23 squares in a turn. But it's a good habit to get into. Always pretend that you're going to fail your next roll, and plan accordingly. So I've got the blitz. All I need to do is push, or defender stumbles, defender down, anything but attacker down or both down. Got the reroll. I get it. Follow up into the end zone. Not only do I KO the catcher, but I score. That's about as well as that could have gone. 1-0 to the Ironbeards. Good job, lads. Still don't have a name for my one and only cheerleader. You're welcome to make suggestions in the comments. And his catcher stays off the pitch. Ooh, the War Dancer's back. That's not good. Not a lot we can do about that though. Death Roller goes off. Thank you, Death Roller. You've been a big service to me today. And we prepare for the kick. There's only one turn, so I don't think that even the Wood Elves can score. It's kind of close. They've got a movement 11 guy. They can do it with a bit of strange luck and some really good rolls. It's not realistic. I just line up guys on the touchline, because apparently I have learned nothing from the last time we played this game. However, I'm confident he can't score, so I just want to have bodies in the way at this point. That's fine. Happy laughing dwarves in the background. Don't blame them. They're doing well so far. I don't need to put a lot of effort into this really, because I'm reasonably sure they can't score. I don't get a turn to make any blocks or anything. I'm just waiting for the half to end. Meanwhile, the Wood Elves are trying to plan something. Again, as I said, they can do a one-turn touchdown, particularly with the Movement 9 War Dancer. However, what they would have to do is try and create a chain of pushes. I'm not particularly sure how you do it, but it is possible by putting the War Dancer right here, or sort of close up to the Dwarven line, and blitzing dwarves around him and then blocking them forward. You can sort of push the player a couple of spaces forward. It's a lot easier if you've got a player with frenzy or something like that, which the Wood Elves don't, but it can be done. However, apparently not. The Wood Elf player is settling for a defensive position, just keeping his guys off the touchline, I guess. So if I do try to block him, no, looks like he's forgotten the rules there. He's trying to move everyone off the touchline, which you can't do. You have to have 3 people on there. Still, no harm done. He's moved off the touchline. I can't block him. Does he bother picking the ball up, making any blocks? It's worth a go. I mean, he might get some injuries, in which case I start to lose important players, and he gains star player points for it. Or typically, because he's an elf, he might just pick up the ball and throw it a square. That'll get you a star player point, why not? Oh no, looks like he's going to try and do for me a few times first. Poor dwarves, they hardly hurt anyone. Yeah, he's getting ready for some punching and some wrestling. Both down. Win some, lose some. Bound to happen against dwarves sooner or later. Of course, now he's run out of targets. And he's just ignoring the ball entirely. Cross there again. Oh dear, fails his go for it and stuns himself. Well, that's the end of the half. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Ironbeards 1, Leapers of Loren 0. Can the Dwarves retain somewhat dignity and get back into their black kit with a win? Hopefully we'll find out when we play again next time. Thank you much for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.